I'd say we're the McDonald's of the accommodation industry. And I mean that with humility because we've developed such a good business format franchise model.
You know, it's really an amazing model that's built on the fact that the foundations are successful. Every quest you go to is the same. It's genuinely the same standard. You know what you're going to get.
So you need to have a certain business acumen to be able to get into the business. But look, some of the characteristics we look at is they need to be people. They need to be able to network.
What's the process like to become part of Quest? And then I've got some money together. I want to be my own boss. I've always wanted to buy a hotel and I love the franchise model.
The first bit is,
Welcome to RB Radio. I'm Frank.
And I'm Trudy. Join us as we explore the very exciting world of the accommodation industry.
We're going to walk you through the ever-evolving landscape of hotels, motels, caravan parks and management rights, but more importantly, the communities and the stories that underpin them all.
From market trends and expert predictions to the personal success stories and many lessons learned, we're going to cover it all.
Join us and let's embark on this journey through the weird and wonderful world of the accommodation industry together. Welcome back to RB Radio. My name is Frank Matus, your host, and I'm very excited. We've got Trudy Crooks back from gallivanting and conquering the world. Welcome back to RB Radio, Trudy, where you're meant to be.
I've missed it. I've got to say, I've missed it. It's been lovely being out there in the field, but I'm very excited about our next guest. So I had to be here for him.
Had to be here. You've flown back in, drove back in, the garage door's broken, but here you are,
Absolutely.
ready to go.
Nothing was going to stop me.
Well, we're very excited. We've got David Ridgway here, who's the General Manager for Franchising for the Quest Apartment Hotels. David, thank you very much for your time.
look, it's my privilege to be here, and I actually can't wait to have a conversation with Trudy. This will be like the conversations we've had the last 12 or 14 years, I can
But
imagine.
this one's on camera.
Exactly.
So
Well, that's true. None of them have been on camera or recorded.
No, now you kind of wish they had been. But David, thank you for joining us. Obviously, for a lot of the people who are watching, might be looking to get into accommodation.
Yeah.
And they might not understand the difference between what Quest offers as a franchise model.
Yep.
And they might be looking at all different kinds of opportunities, maybe other franchises, maybe other businesses.
Sure.
I know whenever I'm asked about Quest, I always say that you're the perfect mix.
Yep.
You've got a whole network of people who run their own business. So they're hands-on, they're hard-working, they're motivated. It's their baby. But you've got the support of your back office, your training program, which is unprecedented. And you've also got a brand, an international brand. So you've really got the best of all.
Yep.
Maybe you could tell the viewers a little bit about Quest and what you guys are seeing, because obviously you're growing faster, mushrooming, I say, to any other hotel group in the country, which is a credit to you.
Yeah, look, Quest is 37 years old. So over 37 years, you'll learn a lot of things. There's the good, the bad and the ugly. So we've made mistakes over those years, but you'll learn from those. And we've now created a model over that time that's a business format franchise model, which is quite different in franchising. So from checking in to checking out and everything in between, there's a system and a process in place. So from a franchising perspective, when you come in, you've got a model that you can click into. Now, you've got to follow that model and execute it, which is not easy. But over the years, we've refined it. And you're right, we're a franchise network. So we're 96% franchised around the country, 120 hotels, 96% of them are in franchisees' hands, business owners. And that's really one of our big differences, skin in the game, because they're part of the community. They lead the team, they maximise their investment in that location, but from a brand point of view, we're more relevant to that location, to the corporate customers as well as the leisure customers. But look, over the years, as I said, we've learnt a lot, and part of that is the support process.
Yep.
So I think in the franchising sector, and I know this is accommodation with resort brokers, but in the franchising sector, I'd say we're the McDonald's of the accommodation industry. And I mean that with humility because we've developed such a good business format franchise model, but it's also the quality of the people that are coming in. Our business owner group, I think, is quite a high calibre. The business values are very high.
Unbelievable.
And over the last 3 or 4 years, as we've come out of the pandemic, they've actually gone up and sustained the profitability, which is really good. So you need to have a certain business acumen to be able to get into the business, but you need that support structure. So, we have what we call franchise relationship managers that work with our franchisees. They'll meet with them every 4 to 6 weeks, give or take, and it's really to sit down with them and go through what they want to achieve out of that investment they've made. They produce a business plan for us. In fact, I had a business here, actually in Brisbane, that we had a selection meeting for early this week, where we had the prospective new franchisees come in for 2 hours to present their business plan, budget and cash flow of why we should grant them the franchise. They've already negotiated the outcome with the particular vendor, being the franchisee, but it's subject to our approval. So they go through this extensive process to get to that point. And to sit there and listen to them about how they're going to maximise investment and unlock the value in that location, I think is really unique. Because they've obviously got to produce it for the bank, for the financing, which is important, but we want to make sure whoever takes that business on, that leasehold, they're going to take it to the next level for their investment, but also from our point of view as a brand. And then the ongoing supports with the FRM, going back to that business plan, keeping them on track why they got invested in the first place.
Reminding them, right? We always talk
100%.
about that too in our business with the agents. This in your day you get so busy. For us, it's deals and so on, but we always want to be out there, up to beat with what's happening in the market. It's just a little bit of a redirection, reminding them what they do. I think even just the process of making them having to present the business model, you can tell how genuinely they've thought it through.
And for the purpose.
Yeah.
It's purpose of providing consistency to their clients.
Also, it's a good thing. How many people don't spend enough time on their business
Rather
because
than
they're
in their business.
And do you see that? Do you see that once they get in, best laid plans go out the window, particularly if they're new?
I mean, in any business, and particularly in accommodation, every day is different. We've all heard that over the years.
Love it
And
or
certainly
hate
in
it,
a
yeah.
hotel, that's 100% correct.
Yeah.
And look, you can't plan for everything. So you've got to be flexible. And our owners do that, I think, fantastically.
They
And the
do.
pandemic's just a great example of how they got through. But in saying that, you do need to have a clear direction of where you want to take the business.
You do.
And there's personal things that can impact you. We're all human. We all have stuff that happens in our personal
course.
life as well as in the business sense. So I think that's where, as a partnership, because we see it as a partnership, that they're investing in the model and the brand, and we're investing in them coming on board. So we want to make sure that we get the best return for it. So, but to be fair, it's not just the franchise relationship managers, the FRMs. We've got marketing, we've got sales, we've got revenue departments, we've got finance, legal, growth. So we have a lot of departments, and our corporate office is around 120, 140 people.
Wow.
And over 80 of those are focused on Quest, because we have obviously the managed estate under the Ascot Limited who
Yes.
own us. And so I think we have one of the largest corporate structures in Australia for a franchising business. And that's there to really support franchisee to be successful. But to be fair, it's a two-way street. They've got to follow the model. So they've got to be
structure
engaged
is an
and disciplined.
important part, and that's where the success and the value then comes from. I've been watching a little White Lotus recently, so
yeah.
I can really understand how the hotel operation is working from that. And so I've got a few questions. No, I'm only kidding. But what I mean is that structure that you guys provide
Yep.
is the value that comes to your
provides
franchisees.
so much security, right?
Yeah.
And it means that you can come in, and we work with a lot of people who are coming into the industry, and they've been very successful. And we always say you don't need a certain skill set.
Yep.
But have you found over the years, and you talk about COVID, so I will mention it,
Yep.
I think it's such testament to you that you guys are genuinely, and I can say this because we've
Yep.
worked together for long enough, that you've come out, the network's so much stronger, or even stronger, I
Yep.
should say. The commitment, they all feel responsible to each other to keep the standard high. They all believe in what they're doing.
Yeah.
Obviously, COVID made everyone look in the mirror, but as a leasehold model, and I've spoken about Quest here before, and I think it is a testament that you guys have come out of COVID even stronger. You
Yeah.
took it as a time to double down, but as a network, you would have had to be pretty affected, with leaseholds. With big rents, the code of conduct, no one was winning from that. I mean, it was really one of the few areas of commercial business that was defined. But I genuinely think that from what I see, your network's stronger for it, and the relationships between landlords and tenants, and they've figured it out, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we got smashed like all accommodation providers. However, we stayed open through that period. And you did have to, as they said, pivot. You had to be flexible.
Yeah.
And look, it was really hard for landlords. I mean, they've got a lot of money
course.
invested, whether it's a strata, which is individual mum and dad investors, or one line. And look, we learned a lot through it. So did the franchisees, the tenants.
Like you
but-
said, it was a partnership. So you're doing
Very much so.
this together.
Yeah, very much so. And it was really trying to find that middle ground to be able to move forward under pretty extreme circumstances. That happens once in a century, and hopefully doesn't happen again
No.
in our lifetime. But look, we learnt some really good lessons. And you're right, I think, from my team's point of view and the senior leadership team that I'm part of, we talked about it's like getting your MBA in those 2 years, because we learnt so much and had to do so much. We learnt through actually doing, and I think that was a good thing. And we added a particular value. We had 4 values, but we added a 5th value, which was mutual respect. Because what we found in some cases, the stakeholders threw that out the door because of the pressure that was going on, which we totally understood. But mutual respect needed to come back to the table when you're in business, no matter what the circumstances. Otherwise, if you don't have that, it's really hard to proceed through the other items that you're trying to work through.
The lens becomes a little, opaque because you're hitting that first.
Stuff just as a word, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that means that I think from what we see, and again, an outside point of view, but we've had a lot of to do with you. We sell 10 or 12 franchises a year for over a decade, so it's been amazing, is the fact that I think genuinely landlords and franchisees or lessees in our world understand each other and appreciate each other more from having to get to know each other better and appreciate each other better.
Look, absolutely, and you have a few battle scars and a little bit of scar tissue from it all. But look, I've got to give huge credit to the business owners, the franchisees, because they've got a lot of money invested, and there was a lot of stress on them. And you're right, every state and territory was different, and so it's really hard to keep up with that when it was changing so much. But because they've got the skin in the game, they just kept at it, and they even had some of their staff in some properties that actually stayed with them through that period. They had issues around their own accommodation. I've always supported different community programs, but they increased over that period. There was newly homeless, where people needed through government support stayed. Domestic violence for women is an area that we've worked in, but obviously that was a bit more over that period. And then there was things about the frontline medical people in the different states, organisations supporting them, construction, which certainly worked through COVID in a lot of cases. So we had to change a lot of things, but we couldn't have done it without the franchisees. And then, to be fair, the corporate office was great, working for the sales team with our national account program.
You drove a lot of
listening
business
to those
still.
customers and what they want as well.
You really did. I know that there was a few franchisees who I know well, and they called me when it first happened and said, is there any way you could sell us out? And unfortunately, we didn't know what was happening. Can I tell you pretty quickly? When the doors opened, I called them and said, I think I can sell it for you.
They're like,
and they
no,
were
we're
like,
good.
Not a chance. And
we're good here.
The network's going incredibly now, isn't it? I mean, you're absolutely shooting the lights out.
Look, we are. And look, it's interesting, in our network, probably around somewhere between 7 to 10% would probably sell their business every year. So if you sort of do that on an annual basis, but coming into 2020, there was a few that were preparing, and then obviously we had the pandemic, so we had to put the tools down, exactly what you said.
And that kind of created all this tension in the market, didn't it?
Correct. And then as we came out of that, the business really kicked in 22, 23, 24, and in the first quarter of 25. And so what that meant is that people worked really hard in their businesses, and then we started, particularly last year and sort of late 23, put the businesses back on the market that do want to sell. So we had a record year of sales, which Resort Brokers was critical as part of that process to transact those businesses.
To be honest,
That's a
they were
perfect segue.
easy. I mean, they're such great businesses.
What makes them a good businesses from a sales perspective, Trudy? From our side,
Okay, so
what makes it?
I genuinely think so. Training.
Yep.
From the fact that if you haven't been in the industry before, and look, you're very prescribed now as to who is your ideal franchisee, which we might come to.
Sure.
But you have to do really intensive training. You have to culturally fit, and they have quite a long step program. I mean, I do think different to a normal transaction where there's a buyer and seller, there's a third stakeholder. But that ongoing training and that understanding of what people are getting into and buying into that, therefore utilising it, therefore it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, then they get and they start to become more successful. It just means that they go from strength to strength. But, really teaching people who may not have run a business or an accommodation business before how to run one really successfully, and the ongoing training support's a huge piece. And then they also have the brand thing, right? They drive so much business, and then James obviously does such a good job because he gets great sites, and because the model is so well respected, the franchisees are successful, the banks like it, so the banks support it to build it. It's really an amazing model that's built on the fact that the foundations are successful.
And that's what underpins the relationship between Resort Brokers and Quest, right? That that understanding of how to sell it and that faith
I
and belief in what
genuinely
you guys are
believe.
doing at Quest, that it makes it easier to have those
And
transactions
Frank,
happen.
if you think, we've obviously always been big sellers of leaseholds, and then obviously franchise, but a leasehold franchise model, but a slightly different one. I do think that you guys have got, the clear obligations of who's doing what, but also, like you say, McDonald's, I say that a bit. I say,
It's a powerful statement.
But every quest you go to is the same. It's genuinely the same standard. You know what you're going to get. They're very clear on what their market is, corporate, mid-length stays. It's not leisure for one night at the beach, is it? Or if you're going to a concert, you get a bit of that, but that's not really what underpins it. So you're really clear, which helps your franchisees be clear, which makes you really profitable, and obviously everyone's happy. If
I mean, our 70% of our business is corporate,
Yep.
and that's made up of national, local business, and 30% is leisure. That'll mix or change a little bit depending on your location.
30% leisure is higher than I thought it was.
And part of
if
that
I'm
is
honest.
I've got to give our brand team a huge
Massive.
kudos here.
Yep.
We've developed the brand, particularly when coming out of the pandemic. There was a lot of domestic travel where people wanted to get back out again. And so I think we took that opportunity really well.
developed, yeah.
And so there is a bit more, and that's on the weekends and the school holidays.
Location specific as well?
Yeah, location specific. I mean, some people don't want to stay in a commercial park when they're going on holidays, but not all our locations are like that in all
a lot
locations.
of them are. I think there's places like Bendigo and
Quest Cronulla is kind of where I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Like,
Cronulla's
that's going to
just
be
right opposite the beach there in
Yeah.
Cronulla.
I mean,
It's
that's a
beautiful.
prime spot.
But you're right, the Bendigo, the Wangaratta's,
There's a lot
I'm
of
staying at
weekend
Toowoomba
business.
tonight as an
Oh,
example.
that's beautiful, that one.
So, I mean, there's some
Yep.
beautiful locations right around the country. But in saying that, I think from a network point of view, the corporate customer is repeat business. They have to be there for work. They come back again. And also, they're very focused on what they're doing.
Yeah.
So if you think it from a business owner's point of view, when they stay, they're low maintenance. From a housekeeping, the costs are lower. Maintenance is lower on the hotel. Leisure, it's higher. They're not a bad customer. They're just a different type of customer.
just a little needier in their requirements, not in a
and
bad
also
way.
they just might have a few more people over. I mean, I travel so much. I always stay in quests very often, but I'd be exactly what you're talking about. Sleep on one side of the bed, make a cup of coffee. I'm out by 7, and I'm back in at 9 at night. So it's very much like the extra space in case I've got a meeting, I can bring someone in.
Correct.
They're really well located. They're in prime regional spots. It's interesting, over the years, people have always, in regional towns, people have been nervous about a Quest coming to town. Now I think the whole industry knows that if Quest has come into town, it's a good thing. You lift the rate, you're getting a certain type of business that might not be provided for.
Well, for us, we have a really clear purpose. We make corporate stay effortless. That's
Yeah, you really
really
do,
clear.
yeah.
And anybody in the network, any owner, key staff all know that.
Yes.
And from that point of view, it's about understanding the customer's needs. So we actually look at that data on a daily basis in each
Wow, do
business.
you?
The owners look at it on a daily basis.
So when you say that, can you break that down a little bit? So when you say the customer's needs, what they're looking to book for, the
Well,
types?
on a couple of levels. So
Yep.
the first one is, like last year, we got over 120,000 surveys and reviews from our guests.
Wow.
So that's a lot of data, and that's made up of all the properties around the country.
Yeah.
And we can then understand the different segments of what their needs are and what we could do better in. And then we measure it on every single hotel. And the franchisee does the same in looking at how they can improve the guest experience in their hotel. Then you take it to the next level, is finding out what's the 2 or 3 things that the guest likes, particularly the repeat guests, because who may communicate more with you.
Yes.
What are their needs when they stay with you? Then putting it into the registration profile, so when they come back, you can deliver on those needs the next time they come back. Or if they stay in another property in the country, somewhere else in the country.
They know what you want, she's
Correct.
loud, put her in a corner suite. That kind
If she wasn't already.
But it sounds
thing.
simple, but when you're in a big box hotel, and nothing against the big chains, you can feel a bit of a transaction feeling.
Totally.
Whereas if it's a smaller hotel, and ours have smaller keys compared to the big large hotels, it's more of that personalised service. So the home away from home type experience.
See, I don't know if that's got to do with the size of the properties. It does by the fact that the person behind the counter, it's their business. They love the location. They think they want to really make your stay special. I do think that there is, with technology, I do think that, that old school, you saw moteliers and parks operators, used to be really great at it. Hey, Trudy, where have you been? We've got some of your favourite wine in tonight, or it's that favourite thing you're like,
That
I
personalisation
do. Well, when you travel
and
a lot,
professionalism, that
but
crossover.
also the upselling.
Yeah.
You're going to go tonight, maybe you should go tomorrow, should I book you in for next month? All those little tweaks of maximising the value.
I think one of the things that's great about accommodation across the board is that when someone stays with you, they're sleeping under your roof. You've got them there for probably at least 8-10 hours. Normally in the business sense, you have a meeting and then everybody leaves that office, or if it's retail, it's in and out. But someone's actually staying under your roof. And so you've got this obligation, but this opportunity to deliver an experience to them. And again, there's a lot of touch points, so it's not easy to manage. And that's why franchisees are so good in this space. And even though it's a small business, it's a big business. So, and it's 24/7, even if reception's not open 24/7, someone's on site that can be called if needed.
And their experience is 24/7, right? You've got a long time to make them happy or make them the opposite.
Correct. Yeah. So, and we just really focus on that and tune into it as a network consistently around the country. We don't always get it right, but that's sort of, I suppose, our objective. And with the FRMs that I talked about earlier, we keep focusing on what can you do better, how can you continuously improve. And because they've invested a lot of money, they want to get a return on that.
Of course they do.
And
so people want to be successful.
It makes a lot of sense why they're so motivated. But also they want to give back to the community. They also want to make sure that they've got a lifestyle and income for their family. So there's a lot of motivating reasons. And when you sort of put them all into the melting pot, it's a pretty compelling opportunity.
No, it's amazing. Can I ask you... honestly, right, without mentioning any properties, but when you get feedback from a certain property, but there may be an area, obviously you'd see the trends of the guests, like out of COVID, domestic tourism, so new people discovering the network who might not stay there traditionally before because they didn't travel in those locations. But do you often find that actually the surveys do represent what the FRM might have been thinking or telling them anyway, reinforces it? Like, do you find that the guest is quite honest?
In most cases. I mean, look, to be fair, the feedback is pretty transparent, and you're right, it's pretty accurate.
Yes.
And sometimes it could be down to maybe the internet's not right, so that's an investment they need to look at. Or it could be the in-room sort of services or amenities that are in place, because there's different options you can choose. Sometimes it's down to cleanliness or maintenance. And it can be very direct. And of course you get the odd guest that might be a little bit particular, but look, that's why we're in accommodation. That happens across any hotel or motel or caravan park.
You learn more from the things that don't go well. And let's be honest, someone who's had a bad experience is going to tell a lot more people than good,
Isn't the statistic 10 to 1? You hear about 10 bad things before you hear one good thing.
But then on the other level, it's interesting to hear the same thing over and over. It often is
an issue.
What you see pretty clearly or subconsciously might be.
And you're right. If you get what we call a detractor type review, you just need to get on the phone, have the conversation if that's what the guest is wanting to do, respond, and then just listen. And if there's a trend, then there's something in your control. Some things you don't have control of as an owner, but most of the items you do. So then what can you do? And if it's something to do with the housekeeping, work with the housekeeping team. If it's maintenance, work with the maintenance person. Or if it's an amenity, okay, let's look at the amenities. Or if it's a regular guest, let's look at their profile. Let's make a note. So when they come back, they prefer this type of tea, or they prefer this in their room. Could be an exercise mat, whatever it is.
So that takes a specific type of person to do this. And so coming to a point that you were right on the edge of, Trudy. Ideal franchisee. You're about to there we are on the same page. Talk us through that, David.
What do you reckon does?
Look, we've got a huge variety of owners across the network, and you're right earlier, Trudy, that most of our franchisees don't come from an accommodation background, but we do have some that come from hospitality, which is terrific as well. But look, some of the characteristics we look at is they need to be people. They need to be able to network. They need to be able to be engaged with their staff and also the guests. So if they want to invest in a business, but they don't want to engage with guests, we're the wrong business to be involved in.
It's not a passive investment, as all of our businesses aren't, but very specifically here.
Very much so. Yeah. You've got to have a passion to want to deliver service to people. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in our
And you've
business.
got to be hands-on. I think a big difference is you've got to be working in the business.
Absolutely.
You know, you guys would have a lot of good people who buy your businesses, but they've got other businesses. And so you know, the way you keep integrity across the franchise is to actually make sure
Be
people
involved.
are hands dirty.
Yeah,
right?
hands-on, and you've got to be energetic. Doesn't mean you're pinging off the walls, but you've got to have a good energy level.
Yep.
But also you've got to have that ability to have a bit of resilience, because being a business owner, you are juggling a lot of balls. You've got a lot of responsibility,
Yep.
and someone's under your care 24/7, technically. So you need to be able to lead that team, manage that appropriately. And if you think about it, you also need to have a significant investment. So you need to have a history where you've been able to actually build up your own investment portfolio to be able to invest in the business. And that's not... From our point of view, we're fully aware they come in with a huge investment, and that's a big responsibility from our point of view as a franchisor to make sure, you know, we respect that investment, but also provide them the tools so they can then do that. The other part that comes with that is to work within a framework. So somebody can come in that's very wealthy, but they don't want to work in a Quest franchise framework, a business
honest.
format franchise model.
Yeah.
Working in a franchise would probably be the last thing they need to do. They like to have their own boundaries.
Do it their own way. Yes,
Correct.
and it might be successful, but it's not your way, and it's not how you guys operate.
So they need to be
Yep.
able to work in a framework, and
Yep.
that's not for everybody. So again, we need to understand that through our selection process to understand whether it's the right fit for them. But look, ultimately, you know, we just want people that are going to have the same values as us. So mutual respect, ongoing relationships. They want to understand how the model works. We've got to be aligned on where we're taking the model. We have a term, choosing your own adventure. We don't want owners that come in to take advantage of the model and the brand and then choose, say, it's going to be a leisure focus, getting back to what we spoke about earlier. We are business focused and leisure is important, but 70% plus of our business is in the corporate. So we need to stay true to the model that helps us to get through not just pandemics, but over the last 37 years that we've been in place, that's what's underpinned our business. And we need to respect that from an owner's point of view, but also from a brand point of view.
But also, I mean, mid-state corporate is the best market to be in from a profitability, repeat business model. Commercially, it certainly is. Maybe we could talk just a little bit at what is the training process like? What's the process like to become part of Quest? And then I do want to know about what the plans are. And I know you're always mushrooming over places, but going to the first point. So what does the training look like? So if I was a newcomer, I've been successful in a sales job, I've got some money together, I want to be my own boss, I've always wanted to buy a hotel, and I love the franchise model.
Okay, look, the first bit is they go through a franchise selection process that can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months or a year, depending on how motivated they are. They might be looking at a business with the resort brokers that's motivating them to talk to Quest. And that is part of the education, understanding the model, the benchmarking that we do, how the financials work, the leasehold model, talking to other franchisees in the network. It's really important under the franchising code of conduct. They talk to other owners to understand what it's like to be in
And
their
early?
shoes.
Do you recommend that quite early?
Absolutely. When they're working with Regan and Cameron and Anna and the franchise establishment team, really important to work with them. But they can talk to anybody in the network, and we strongly encourage that.
Fantastic.
And then if they get through that whole process and that selection meeting I talked about earlier, they get to the training. We have a 12-week training program, so a 3-month program, but it's tailor-made to the individual based on their history and their skill set. Because some people need training in certain areas more than others. So we actually bespoke it to their particular needs.
Okay, so it's not cookie cutter from that point of view.
No.
So if you've got experience, you've run accommodation, but maybe you weren't that good at dynamic pricing or you weren't that good at online.
Correct.
Or so on, then you guys identify that
Yep.
through conversations?
Through Quest Academy, they do that particular assessment. So they do a one-on-one assessment with the individual or individuals coming in. And then they go through the training, and part of it's online, so it makes it a bit more flexible around what they're trying to do. Then another part is they go to a property in Collingwood. Actually, we've got a property called Quest Collingwood. Now, corporate office is next door, and they actually spend 2 weeks in the property learning the fundamentals of the business. Now, again, depending on their hospitality background or non-hospitality, that'll be tweaked as well. And
So
then once
horses for courses,
Very much so.
based on experience.
Now
because
that's
people
for
have got
that's for a brownfield, an existing business, And then when they go into the business and they settle on the day, we spend another 2 weeks with them in the business with our
You go to
franchise
them.
operations support team
Wow.
to help them in the business in that transition of owning it. Because the previous owners have left the business, and of course they don't know what they don't know, and we use that to fine tune their understanding and also to understand how the staff are
On the ground.
on the ground.
And you see, it's like how we see most transactions. But instead of the person going out who might have always done it the way they've done it, they're being taught best practice from day dot.
From the
They're
start,
not
or
taught
even
bad
before,
habits.
pre-date.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. How many people go in and before they've found their perfect business? This might take a year, like you say. They've
Yeah.
still got a job or another
Yep.
business to sell. By the time they go into the 2 weeks on site, I bet you they just come out just wanting more.
Some of them probably are in the corner in a fetal position. No, I'm joking. No, there's such a build up.
That's just hospitality
Yeah.
in general. That's not specific to Quest.
There's such a build up to going through the whole process
Yes.
to buy the business. And I'm not just saying this, but resort brokers over many years and over a decade plus have worked with us, because when we've worked with other brokering companies, they see us as a blocker. And from that point on, what I mean is they don't respect the process. And by working with us, we want the right owner, and we want to get a good price
You
for our
guys
current
are the
franchisee.
biggest point
They
of
want it to be
difference.
successful.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to still learn when you're in the business. So that's
Of
why
course
we
there
spend
is.
2 weeks
But you
with
never
them.
want to stop learning.
But to be fair, the franchise network also support the franchisees. So they develop that relationship prior to with franchisees. So they also lean on the network. It's not just us as a
And
corporate
I've
office.
seen that hugely from when we're invited along. The network is so tight. You can tell when a culture's good because they help each other.
Correct. And that's how we've
Yeah.
developed the system through the feedback we get from the network. It's been
Yeah.
invaluable. But I think the other part is that, and I'm not just saying this because we're on a podcast with you,
But
because you
feel
know
free to
this.
say it if you have to,
But in the 16 years I've been at Quest, and particularly the last 12, 14 years I've been involved in this part of the
Yes.
business, resort brokers work with us. There's been brokering companies over the years that see us as a blocker to someone buying a business because we've got such a rigorous process. They see it as this is too hard. Whereas resort brokers work with us.
I think you guys and what you offer is actually your point of difference.
I believe that. We
Yes.
certainly do.
Yeah.
But it gets the best result, firstly for the vendor who's selling, the franchisee,
Yep.
but also the incoming franchisee to make sure they've done their due diligence, they understand
what
what they're
they're
investing
getting.
in, and they've had the time to do it properly, because it sets everybody up for success. The person that's exiting, that deserves every dollar they get, and the person that's investing, that's coming in, they want to get a return. And from our point of view, we want to make sure we remain relevant in that marketplace and we can grow it in that brand and continue that process that we've done over 30 years.
That's
You
a
know what? I
perfect-
reckon that's just the one thing I would say. I think it's been incredible, and I said this to you, David. People had such strong trading figures, and you've always sold on a factor of profit
Yeah.
or adjusted profit. With a two-person management team, and how well the network had done and the prices of these businesses.
Yep.
And I said to you, I think I said to you, gosh, I don't know if there's hands-on people who have this kind of money. And I've been amazed how the prices just keep going up. And that's because the quality of the franchisees keep coming up. And that's testament to you and your team. We love working with you. We so value the relationship.
That is such a
Appreciate
perfect way
it.
to
We really
finish up
do.
today. David, thank you very much for coming on RB Radio. Trudy, welcome back. This is a way to get you back into the flow of things,
and
isn't it?
we'll do this again.
Yeah,
We'll do this
100%.
again.
Thank
We
you
could
very
go
much
for
for
it.
inviting me too. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much. And thank you for everybody watching. RB Radio, come and talk to us if you want to buy a Quest. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining us at RB Radio.
If you enjoyed the insights from this episode, we'd love your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Stay connected with us on all social media platforms at Resort Brokers. We're excited to continue this journey with you and see you in the next episode.
See you then.